But we have General McInerney on the line. General, can you hear me?
I read you five by Charlie. How may?
Hi, how are you? We can hear you great, and thank you for joining our program.
Yes, sir. I'm delighted to.
Well, and so I have played the clip of you a couple days before the election, probably a couple dozen times on our program, as we have been diving into a lot of these irregularities. Can we just first start with your credentials? Can you talk about your life's work, the security clearances that you have, and then I want to dive into some of the specifics because what you are talking about, I think, is so important for our country and for people to understand.
Yes, Charlie, I ended up as the number three man in the Air Force on the Air Staff as the Assistant Vice Chief of Staff. Simultaneously, I ran Vice President Gore's Reinventing Government for all of the Defense Department. Prior to that, I'd been the commander in Alaska Command, the Vice Commander-in-Chief of Europe Air Forces, as well as I was the commander of 3rd Air Force when we attacked Tripoli in 1988, April 15th. That was the largest attack against terrorism, and then had an air division on Okinawa, the DCS Operations and Intelligence for Pacific Air Forces, 4 tours in Vietnam. I think that's enough.
Well, I want to thank you for your service, and I asked that question intentionally because lots of left-wing bloggers, and I use that word blogger, I'm not even going to give them the term journalist, tries to discredit anything that you say when in reality you have incredible credibility on this. And so General, can you just take us through what is Hammer and Scorecard? You said this before the election to Steve Bannon on his program. You said this was something that was developed under Barack Obama, maybe under the agency or intelligence services. What is Hammer and Scorecard?
Okay, Hammer and Scorecard were initially developed, Charlie, in 2003 as a signals intelligence on the Taliban and radical Islamists. It was very successful. It was developed by a chap by the name of Dennis Montgomery, who's a genius, maybe the smartest guy in the world on this business. In any case, when President Obama came in, 2 weeks, Charlie, after he came in on February 3rd, 2009, he moved it out of the CIA over to a secret SCIF, a self-contained intelligence facility that we use in Fort Montgomery, and he started listening to U.S. citizens. Oops. Mistake number one.
Yes.
CIA and nobody listens to U.S. citizens. But Barack Obama directed Jim Clapper and John Brennan to do it. They did that. I got involved with it in 2017, March, when I announced they were using it to listen to the Trump campaign as well as the Trump administration. A week ago tonight, 2 weeks ago tonight, 2 days before the election, I got word that they were using Hammer and Scorecard, which was a new application. Envision Hammer being like your iPhone and Scorecard being an app on it. They break into communications areas. They put a scorecard on it. It manipulates the data, voting data. It's only focused on voting, like your apps on your iPhone may be for your bank, for whatever, travel, whatever it is. This changes the vote count, so it's about a 3% difference between moving votes from Trump to Biden. And I predicted on Steve Bannon's show on Monday night, Monday afternoon around 1 or 2 o'clock, that we were going to lose the election because they were using Scorecard and Hammer to change the vote. Now, I know it's really true because Fox News will not let anybody that comes on there say Scorecard or Hammer. And so they've intentionally isolated that. Somehow they got Fox News to flip, which tells you how big this is. And I could give you a bunch of names, I won't, of people that are involved in this that are going to shock you.
So, General, just to be able to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, right before the election, you received word, and we don't have to dive into from where, but at a at a verified enough level where you were willing to go public before the election and make the prediction, which ended up being, spot on, it seems, that there was an agency created tool under Obama that was then going to be used domestically. Now, I'm just a civilian, but you said something that I was always under the impression the CIA is not supposed to meddle into domestic American affairs. Are you saying that the agency has been actually using this now domestically in our elections?
Well, they were then, and I'm getting indications, but they're just indications, Charlie, that the CIA was involved in this one too. And yeah. I don't have it verified yet, but it was from such a good source that, and I think the director of the CIA is persona non grata in the White House.
So you're just, and this is a hard thing for a lot of people to swallow, just General, and this is, I'm doing my best to be able to process this, because what you're really saying is that the election result that the media is projecting is a fraud, and it was interfered based on technology that we developed.
Correct. Precisely.
And so can you tell us about Dennis Montgomery? Did I get that name correct?
Yes.
He is in hiding, or he is not to be found right now. He developed this hammer and scorecard technology.
Yes, and he became a whistleblower once he saw what they were doing with it in 2015, and he went through the process, FBI, DOJ, and they gave him immunity, but he could never state secret divulge this information. Now, they wouldn't have gotten that state secret because people are trying to discredit Dennis, and they're trying to discredit me. And when they start to discredit, you're winning, Charlie.
Yes.
You're winning. Just today, I had a call from a former FBI friend, and so I know what they're doing. They're in trouble because they took this, and Dennis is a great American because he let America know what was going on. And that is crucial that we understand it. President Trump won by a landslide. He probably got 75 to 78 million votes. The votes he got at 71 or 72 are 10 million above what he got last time. And to put the sniff test on it, you look at the down ballots, Charlie. No Republican who ran for office this year in the House lost. Plus, we gained 10 or 11 going up still as they're counting. And we didn't lose the Senate. And so when you put the sniff test against it, it doesn't measure up, does it?
So you're exactly right. And we've talked, in general, what you're saying would actually be able to clarify some of the questions that we've been asking here on this program, which is, how is it possible that Republicans won 28 out of 29 competitive House seats? We flipped 3 state legislatures and did not lose a single Republican incumbent. How is it that 500,000 ballots just went for Joe Biden? But here's what I am trying to understand. Based on what you're saying, was hammer and scorecard only used in certain states and certain cities, or was it deployed nationally, or is it still, we're not sure. Is it a technology that's put to a machine, or is it how you count the votes?
Well, it's a technology. The votes, except for Texas, when they come from the polling places and they go up to the Secretary of State of each state, they go into transfer points. That's where the hammer is applied, because that's the first time, except for Texas, as I mentioned, that it meets the internet. When it's on the internet, hammer gets in there, sensitizes it, puts the scorecard on it, and takes those scores from, because hammer is reading all the states, and it takes those scores and gives a balance. So it's not out of balance, but because there were so many people voting for President Trump, they had to throw in a lot of things, and they made some very big mistakes, i.e., at 0400 in Michigan, 138,000 ballots show up all for, guess who? Joe Biden. No way. And it happened in 3 or 4 other states. Now, all the states that were they used hammer and scorecard on were the battleground states. Didn't need to do it in New York or California or any of those. just the battleground states.
Now, is it because that if they used it in more places, it would possibly give the it would be easier to discover, or is it just that they wanted?
Well, they didn't have to.
Got
you
it.
don't have to use it in New York. You don't have to use it in California. So that's why they used it on the key battleground states, which flips you into who wins.
Yes. Well, and especially and that would clarify how is it that President Trump won a county in West Texas on the border near El Paso, the first Republican to do so since 1902. How did he overperform in every urban area except the 4 urban areas that stopped counting where it mattered? Can you talk more about Barack Obama's involvement in this? It seems that the Obama administration never let go of power. President Trump might have occupied the White House, but Obama and his staffers and his ploys and his tactics always seemed to be involved. Can you talk about how Obama and his platoon of cronies are probably behind this?
Well, Obama is the first president since George Washington that stayed in the D.C. area, and he moved into Kalorama in the district. Very unusual. Harry Truman went back to Missouri. Ike went to Pennsylvania. We know the whole story. George Bush went down to Texas, both of them, the Bushes. But guess who stayed in the D.C. area? Even Bill Clinton moved to New York. So he has been controlling this and manipulating all the things. Should we be surprised because of all the attacks that went against President Trump on the Russian collusion from before the election, through the election, and into the administration, and it was looked at exhaustively, and then they did an impeachment? Should we even think that they wouldn't do something else? They are desperate. And why are they doing this? Because we're uncovering the swamp. We're uncovering all the illegal things that happened in the Obama administration.
And so the process of how this works, and Dennis Montgomery, who actually designed it, how can we actually prove this now? And what is the remedy? So, General, a lot of people are emailing us right now. We're getting thousands of emails of people watching at freedom@charliekirk.com of people that believe everything you're saying. But now they're saying, now what? How do we prove it? What is the remedy? Because it seems like the powers to be are trying to jam through Joe Biden to become the next president of the United States.
They are. The remedy is affidavits will be made on each one of those states that are in question, like Michigan, like Pennsylvania, like maybe Minnesota, and those states, Arizona, those states in question, North Carolina, although they're about finished on their voting, in Georgia, those states will come through with an affidavit and will show the exact time, date stamp on when those ballots, like at 0400 in Michigan, 138,000 votes. So each one of them will have the illegal votes. Look, the most number of votes that I think that President Trump is out, maybe 47,000 in Pennsylvania, and the least I think is 7,000 or something in Arizona. But in any case, every one of these votes will show a much larger number. In the military terms, the primary attack we call the spear pump. You may have heard it. That's the main attack axis. You have deception attack axes, but hammer and scorecard was the main attack axis. Now, a Dominion on the voting machines is another major effort. Now, the relationship with Dominion and scorecard, I don't have time to discuss it, but that was there. Those were the two primarily attack axes. And that's why you had a military takeover of a server in Germany and other things going on because of the international aspects. And I don't know, Charlie, if you've talked about the presidential directive that went out in 2018 on foreign nations influencing the election that the president put out, the executive order. But that's very important.
Can you talk about that? We haven't touched on that, and that would be very helpful.
all I can say is in 2018, the president must have known something was going on, Charlie, because he put out a very exhaustive executive order that discussed that, and he's now implementing it. And when you asked about President Obama's involvement, there are other very senior people that were involved in this, and the evidence is mounting and mounting is all I can say, and it's very specific that President Trump has. And he's now starting to come up on the network on what he's starting to tweet. He very cleverly went into defilade, went calm out, and for these time, but now all the evidence has been gathered. It takes a little bit of time when you're gathering this kind of evidence. But now he's seen it, and his team, very close advisors, Sidney Powell is very heavily involved, as is Rudy Giuliani, and they're working the problem. But as they've gathered this evidence since then, it is compelling, and it's treasonous, and that's the difference. It is compelling and it's treasonous.
So, General, I have a non-empirical, non-data question that maybe you can help here. When I discuss some of this with normal, good American citizens and civilians, that they want to build their family, they vote, they go to church, they have a hard time really believing that our own government would do this. What do you have to say about that? Because they just say it sounds too sinister and too malevolent. I can't make that kind of leap. I don't hold that view. I know what our government is capable of and what they did to our president. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I just tell them, look and see the evidence. And the evidence is compelling. You cannot deny it. It will have to go to the Supreme Court. It will be very, very important to this nation. And they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers the Chicago Black Sox, but that's what the Democratic Party is going to be. They have graced themselves in the Congress and in the mainstream media. Those things are very, very evident. And so it sweeps across a lot of people, to include a lot of Republican anti-Trumpers.
And so there are tens of thousands of people watching us live right now, and soon to be hundreds of thousands and millions of this conversation. What can people do, General? People feel like they're losing their country. They feel like they did their part. They believed in this system that is now going against them. You know, you have some insight into where this could be headed. What can patriotic Americans do right now, as it seems as if there is a bigger game at play to try to jam Joe Biden in to be president?
Yes, that's exactly right, Charlie. They're trying to steamroll it. They've got to, number one, support the president. It was over 30 days when the Gore-Bush thing on the protest. Support the president. He's got the information. Let's make it a very valid, important election, or otherwise this is the last one America will have.
And so General, do you say here tonight that there is a good likelihood that President Trump will serve a second term as president of the United States?
90%.
Well, that gives me some hope, because, you know, General, just looking at the powers to be and how they're kind of all harmonizing, the only hope, I suppose, is the U.S. Supreme Court looking at this evidence and then either ordering a revote or some form of a hand recount or audit. But I don't even know if that would make the difference.
I don't think they're going to have to do it. Once the evidence is presented of how many votes, for instance, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, and the other states came through Hammer and Scorecard, they can make that determination, Charlie. And that's very important. It's important for this nation.
Yeah, well, and so, General, I want to, for people that are just tuning in right now, I just want to reiterate this. And first, I just want to thank you for your courage for speaking out, because, you know, with someone with your incredible career and your service to our country, to speak about this, it's very heroic. And I want to thank you for that. And a lot of people felt that something like this was happening, and it's a really important thing. I guess I have a question of, do you think that Biden knew about this, or his team knew this was going to happen?
His team knew about it. I think he did. Or if not, then the future strategy to run for the presidency will be no press conferences an hour long through the whole campaign. The largest crowd he ever had on his thing was 14 people and blowing horns and staying in the basement most of the time. That's not the solution for a successful presidential campaign, Charlie. That doesn't pass the sniff test, does it?
Any comments on the Saito, Venezuela, Cuba, China kind of connections? Because I know a lot of people are mentioning that there's actually might be some of these foreign actors at play here.
I've heard that, but I don't have any comments on it now, Charlie.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. Well, General, I want to thank you for joining our program, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm glad that you're speaking out, but it actually makes me disappointed that people in the highest levels of government in the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world would hate a leader so much that they would engage in tactics like this. I thought that even the other side was better than this, but I put nothing past them. So
I don't either. And the 10% is if we have a faulty judiciary. We know from watching General Flynn and Sidney Powell what has happened there. And if we have judges that have conflicted and politicized themselves, that's where I put the 10%. Otherwise, it's 90%.
Well, God bless you, General, for speaking out and joining us. We're going to stay on top of this, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. So thank you so much, General, for joining us.
Thanks, Charlie. God bless you.
Thank you. Speak to you soon. So I want to... So we are going to be joined momentarily by Congressman Louis Gohmert, and I mean that was some incredible revelations that was shared by the general here, and he said, "quote treason, that this is treasonous, that what was done on Hammer and Scorecard." And we're actually fixing some technical stuff here. Can you hear me, guys? Now, Terrell? Okay, sorry, guys. We're fixing things in real time, and so. The general said that it was treasonous, and the general handicapped the odds at 90%. That's right, 90% at the president getting a second term. And I want you to email us your questions, everybody, freedom@charliekirk.com, freedom@charliekirk.com. And just to reiterate what we just saw there, that was General McInerney, who is the 3-star general, who said that Hammer and Scorecard was developed by our own government, used internationally in the Taliban by Obama, and now deployed domestically against Donald Trump. And he said very clearly that this was treasonous. I mean, that's exactly why I want to thank you guys for supporting us at charliekirk.com/support. That type of interview is going to send shockwaves, and we are going to keep on diving deeper into all that.